to introduce themselves, tell about their career path, and how physics education, physics knowledge had helped them or hurt them, I don't know, in their careers, and whatever else they want to share. And then after that, we'll open the floor for discussion. So if you have a question to the entire panel or individual panelists, please just use the raise hand action, and I will be calling questions in the order that they arrive, hopefully. So yeah, with that, I see Ned being the first on my screen, so why don't you?
Hi, everybody. I'm Ned Nestorovic. I graduated in physics from UW in 1988, so maybe that makes me the old person on the panel here. Went to graduate school after that, got my master's in physics, and decided I was tired of eating top ramen while I was pursuing my PhD. So, and maybe that's one of the ways that you get harmed is you're not making a ton of money while you're in school. But anyway, I went up. I really loved my optics class actually in the third year of physics program. And that really set the course of my life, in effect, pursuing optical systems. So I worked for Hughes Aircraft for a long time back in the day before they disintegrated. And more recently, kind of in the late 1999, I started Seattle Photonics, and we're an engineering consulting firm that specializes in optical systems. So we work on everything from cell phone camera lenses up to space telescopes, and we work for big companies and little companies and everything in between. And it's really quite a gas.
Thank you, Ned. Charlie, you're next.
Everyone, my name's Charlie. I graduated in 2023, studied applied physics at UW. And yeah, since I graduated, started an internship at a small aerospace company, and then from there managed to land a job at Amazon working on their satellite constellation called Project Kuiper. It's pretty much Amazon's attempt at making Starlink, so fingers crossed. There I work on the satellite propulsion team as a systems engineer. So we're the team that builds the onboard electric propulsion systems used for in-orbit operations. So it's like station keeping, ascent, deorbit, mitigation maneuvers, things like that. And then as a systems engineer, kind of wear many hats. There are a lot of different responsibilities that I own, both myself and as a systems engineering team. So we kind of handle anything at the vehicle level involving the propulsion system, as well as requirements management, system design and integration, vehicle level test, a lot of things like that. So, yeah.
Thank you, Charlie. Athena, you're next.
Hi, everyone. My name's Athena. I graduated last March from UW. I was a double major in comprehensive physics and astronomy. And while I was an undergrad, I did research for LIGO, which is the Laser Interferometer Gravitational Wave Observatory. I did that for 2 years, helping with noise signal detection and kind of analyzing that. And then I also worked in the UW Space Lab, which is, funny enough, also in the acronym Space Concepts and Advanced Engineering Lab under Professor Little, doing plasma propulsion. And once I graduated, I immediately started working for my current job. I am an electrophysics engineer at Boeing Phantom Works. So I work on technology development in electrophysics, electromagnetism. Yeah.
Great, thank you. Yeah. Evan, you are next up.
Hey everyone, Evan Klein. I graduated from UW Applied Physics and Astronomy in March of 2023. During my time at UW, I was part of a astronomy research group under Jessica Work. Any astronomy people, you may know of her. After that point, I took a few months and then I went to Brookhaven National Lab, which is in New York, where I was working on laser optical test bed setups. After that, I just got hired on to Blue Origin, where I'm a avionics integration technician, which basically means I'm building different test setups, different R&D, electronics, and stuff of that sort. And I was just hired on a month and a half ago.
Great, thank you, Evan. Arielle, or did I say it right?
Hi, my name is Arielle Leon. I am a software engineer at the Allen Institute. I graduated with a double major in physics and astronomy back in 2012. I've been here at the Allen Institute helping support scientists learn about the dynamics of neurosystems. My work mostly involves helping scientists scale the science that they're working on by collecting copious amounts of data, metadata, getting it processed, and also QC'd so that we're packaging and posting data to the community in a meaningful way.
Thank you, Arielle. And Alex, last but not least.
Hey, I'm Alex. I graduated from UW with a double major in physics and astronomy in 2011. I went after graduating and worked for a year at a private school teaching physics and math. And I really liked teaching, but didn't really like teaching in a private school. So I went back to school. I got my master's in teaching, and I've been teaching physics at Issaquah High School for like 10 years now. And then recently I've also been teaching guided studies, which is like a study skills and credit recovery class.
Awesome, thank you. Okay, so now that we all know who our panelists are and their career paths, the floor is open for questions and discussions. Anybody who's ready, please raise your hand. Anything from, I don't know, what made our panelists make certain choices and so on and so forth. So it looks like Eric is
Hello.
first one to raise the hand.
Yes. Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Actually, a couple of questions, but first I will start with Athena. You mentioned you did an internship at LIGO from 2022 to 2024, and I believe that's during your college years. So I was wondering how you would how you balance that internship with the academic rigor as well.
Yeah, so I was able to balance it, I think mostly by scheduling my time. In my 4 years at UW, I was also on the rowing team. So I had a really tight schedule. So pretty much all my days I'd write out beforehand, like, okay, I have practice from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. Then I have class this time, this time, this time. In between these classes, I'm doing this. After all my classes before practice, I'm going to work on like this coding project for LIGO. And then after practice in the evening, get all my homework done. I think it was, yeah, mostly just really prioritizing my time and thinking about, okay, I have this much stuff I have to do and I have this much available time. This is what I'm going to do each part.
Oh, so it was concurrent. I think that was the question I had.
Oh,
Yeah,
sorry.
it's okay. Because I was wondering if you focused just on like physics courses and pretty much that's the first part. If you focus just on physics, and if you were doing the internship, if it was just the internship itself or the school itself. But from what you answered, it seems like you did both at the same time, like the study and the internship.
I did, yeah.
Okay. And All right. Next question will be for Charlie. I noticed your internship at Flight Dynamics was May 2024, and I believe it was if you were at quarter schedule. I was wondering how you made that work for like transitioning from spring to summer quarter.
Yeah, so I actually graduated in the spring quarter of 2023. And so I was done with classes at that point and then was able to start an internship pretty much like starting in, I'm going to say dead week and then finals week. So I was kind of able to ramp up and then finish all my courses. And then I was able to jump straight into the internship. So yeah, fortunately didn't have to do it completely concurrently, but had a little bit of spacing there.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you, Eric.
Yep.
Okay. Anybody? Nobody? Questions for the panelists? Leela, please go ahead.
Yeah, hi. I guess right now I'm trying to weigh like going to grad school versus not, or like maybe go into a career for a little bit, then go to grad school. And I was just wondering if you guys had any insight on like in your careers or at the companies that you're at, like how useful grad school is or not.
Excellent. Who wants to start? Ned, please.
Yeah, actually, that's a really, really good and pertinent question, I think, Leela. I think you can kind of suggest there's both paths are equally financially viable, let's put it that way, if that's really, ultimately what you want to do. I will say certain, and I'm only speaking to the optics realm, but there, the specificity that you get, working potentially like on a PhD project can open a lot of doors for you in terms of the corporate world. People who design lasers, for example, those are complicated devices. They're not trivial. You need to have a kind of a little bit of experience under your belt before you start working on something like that. So that's when a graduate degree is extremely useful. In other places, potentially like a Microsoft or something like that, it's maybe less so because they'll maybe, put you in different places depending on what you want to do and what they see as a good fit for you. So I don't think one is necessarily better than other. It really just depends on what your goal is and what you want to be working on. I would cash that whole discussion that way.
Yeah, Athena.
I actually had this question when I was an undergrad as well, and I was lucky enough to be able to set up an individual time to call with a career professional. And I asked her this because I totally thought to go into physics work, I would have to get a PhD first. And so I asked her her same question, and her response was, like, if you know exactly what you want to do and you really, really love it, and you want to spend that time getting your PhD, then absolutely go after your PhD. But what she said with that was also, once you have your PhD, it means you're super, super specialized in that area. And so you're kind of in that area then. You're kind of doing that work. And so if you're not totally sure what it is you want to do, then maybe go into a career first, get a couple years of experience. That's my plan. I just graduated my bachelor's and I am planning on going to grad school. I'm glad I went into my career first because now I'm knowing a little bit more about what I like and things I don't want to do. And something that's great too is if you work for some companies, they will completely pay for your grad school. I know for myself, Boeing will 100% pay all my tuition for grad school if I decide to go.
Thank you. Anybody else?
And I'd say just to add on to what Athena said, that people don't tend to stay in like one career as much anymore. And so like kind of figuring out after a couple of years where your passion in the working world lies and where you're going to land can be helpful.
Thanks, Alex. And Arielle?
Yeah, I was just going to give the case that I decided not to go to grad school, and mostly it was for financial reasons because I needed to make money. And there has been a time where I thought maybe it would be useful to maybe get a master's or something, because what my physics degree gave me was the ability to not be afraid to go into any, kind of career, which I think is really valuable. In fact, I started here at the Allen Institute as a systems engineer, building some of the microscopes for 2-photon imaging. And now I'm not only writing code, but also leading a team of other engineers. And so it worked out where I kind of got all my school through my career. And so I think going back to what Athena and Ned were saying is just that it is very, dependent on what are your needs, and nothing is static. Like, you can always change at any time. So yeah.
Thank you. Evan or Charlie, anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, I also was really confused about that too, which path to go along, of like grad school or going into the professional world. I think you really just have to consider the industry. Like Ned was saying, it can be helpful if it's a very specialized field. But the advice I got was, if ultimately you do plan to go into industry, I would recommend going for it and not necessarily going the route of PhD and then career. But other people may have other opinions. But if you have a specific career field in mind, I would say trying to go for that would be my advice.
Thanks, Evan. Charlie?
Yeah, I would say ditto on what Evan said. I feel like a lot of people, especially when they're trying to go into industry, might feel unqualified, especially when you look at job descriptions. Like 90% of engineering jobs, like, always say preferred master's degree or something like that. They're always just going to put that on the job application. Like, they don't actually expect you to always have a master's degree. So I feel like a lot of people kind of fall into that trap, thinking that they just have a bachelor's, like they got to get something else to put on the resume. So yeah, I mean, I would say just go for it. Like, you should definitely, like, if you want to go into industry, like, don't feel like you need to get higher education first. Like, apply to jobs, just try and get that resume right, and see where you can get. And like, more generally, I feel like a master's degree, and especially a PhD, is not really for the faint of heart. So if you really, really feel like you want to go to grad school, you should do it. But if you're on the fence, like, that shouldn't be your first option. Like, really sit down and think about that. But yeah, like, bottom line, don't feel like you're underqualified because you don't have the master's degree. Like, you can do a lot without having, that additional degree, going straight into industry.
Thank you, Charlie. Arielle? Yeah.
Thank you guys. I appreciate it.
Yeah, one thing I just wanted to add to kind of tack on to what Charlie said is that, and I think that this has been echoed, was that if you do want to go to grad school, you probably want to be really passionate about that thing that you're going into, whether it's like physics, neuroscience, whatever. But I know that there are a lot of cases where people with PhDs and were applying for jobs, and they didn't necessarily companies didn't necessarily consider their PhD grad work as like job experience. And so that's not always going to give you an upper hand unless you have something that's really specialized. Like, you're going into the same specialized field.
Oh, that's very interesting. Thank you. Okay. Next question. And you can raise your hand during discussion. So the two hands were raised at the same time. So let's start with Adrash. Darsh.
Yeah, hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. So I guess my question for all of you is, I know it's been a while since some of you have been in undergrad, but if you can remember, when you were in undergrad, were there any specific courses that you remember taking that were very helpful for you in your career now?
Okay. Somebody who was an undergrad a long time ago. Why don't we start with Ned?
Yeah, it feels like 100 years ago now, Boris. I don't think you were even teaching there when I was going to school there. So,
No, I was
and
going
I
to
think,
school.
no. Yeah, dating myself. In any event, so let me, and just to kind of finish off the prior discussion, I think the cool thing about physics degrees, undergraduate degrees, is you get a great broad toolkit, both, analytically and just kind of understanding how to attack a problem. If you may not know the answer, you have the tools to kind of go dig into it, no matter what the topic matter. And just kind of your ability to use software and everything else. So I think broadly speaking, and I think a couple of people here have already said that, don't be afraid of that. Don't feel like you don't have the skill set to do that stuff, because you do. So being kind of the elder statesman here, maybe not statesman, in any event, when I went to school, I knew I wanted to do physics. I really thought I wanted to do atomic physics and nuclear physics, and I loved all that stuff, as a high schooler, certainly. But then I stumbled into the optics course because I needed another elective, and I absolutely fell in love with that. And that's what I'm continuing to do today. And I literally went to a grad school that specialized in optics. So I think there's probably gonna be a case by case, basis for everybody, but just getting the skill sets. And I think any, coding that you can do within the physics department, again, I'm not, up to date on what they're teaching there now, but back in the day we had, Fortran and C. And that has helped me early in my career. So I think those types of skill sets, yeah, and classes are important.
Thank you, Ned. Okay, who's next on the panel? Who wants to chime in?
I can go.
Alex?
Oh, never mind.
Okay. Why don't Athena, once you go next?
Oh, sorry. So asking for a specific class, and this will tie into a bigger theme that I'll say. I think one class that was valuable for me was Mario Jurek in astronomy. I think it was like the second Python class. And the reason I think this was so valuable was because it wasn't set up teaching you like, oh, this is how you do Python, XYZ. It was, you have this issue, you want to solve this. I'm going to teach you how to figure that out. So it was less of just teaching you material that you're memorizing and more of teaching you how to solve problems when you need to figure something out. And I think the biggest thing or the most valuable thing that I got in undergrad wasn't like memorizing electromagnetism and specifically learning how all that works. It was figuring out how to adapt to a new situation and a new problem. When I actually talked to my manager and asked if it would be a good idea to do this and gave him the prompt, he said that there is no degree that will prepare you for exactly what you're going to do. And it is important to have that wide skill set so you can adapt to whatever may come.
Excellent. Thank you. Alex?
Yeah, so in the teaching world, the classes that helped me most were the physics 407, 408, 409 physics by inquiry courses. I had a ton of fun in those courses, and like looking at the way that people learned has helped me a lot in my career. And then the other class was, I think it was English like 288. It's not a physics course, but a technical writing course that I took that did a lot of focus on like how to write a resume, how to write an email, communication skills that have helped me in things that I use every day. Was one of the most impactful courses that I took in my academic career.
Thanks, Alex. Okay. Good. Charlie? Remember any physics courses that you took?
A few, yeah. Yeah, let's see. I would definitely say, well, okay, to bring it back to like my personal experience as an engineer right now, two most important and useful sets of courses were one, the like analog electronics and digital electronics courses. Like I didn't even do that well in those classes, but like being, basically competent in electrical engineering became enormously useful for me, being an engineer now. That, and then also just knowing how to code and specifically like just understanding like the basic tool set when it comes to programming. So working, in a repository, being able to navigate, a Linux system and a terminal. So like knowing how to be a self-sufficient, programmer and software engineer, as well as knowing, the basics of electrical engineering. Like that is kind of my experience, the core tool set that I need to be, a decent engineer right now. And what I've learned is like, that's kind of a common theme with a lot of engineers that I work with. Most people that I work with, surprisingly, like I work on an electric propulsion team. So you'd think that there's a lot of electrical engineers. There's actually only like 2 or 3. The rest are like aerospace, physics, mechanical engineering, but they've all learned how to code and work with electronics kind of on the fly. So I would say like getting good at those things, or at least like understanding, being comfortable with the basics, is really just going to set yourself up for success in real world engineering.
Thank you. Arielle?
Sure. Yeah, I want to echo what Athena said. I think that it's very true that like there's really not one physics course that I can say like, I really carry with me. I think every professor who I heard say just stare at the board, probably you'll figure it out, was probably the most meaningful, is just to let me, like sit and look, because that'll help you solve problems. And the only thing that I'll add is that Mathematical Methods for Physics book is still at my desk. So.
Wow. Fantastic. All right, Evan.
Yeah, I think going back to astronomy 480 and 481, those 2 courses really taught me like problem solving using Python and a lot of data science, which I didn't know like anything to do with astronomy, like looking at star tables or stuff like that could be really relevant to everyday things at work, like, inventorying what we have in the lab, or just a lot of other data science that didn't realize I could get from that.
Interesting. Okay. Thanks, Evan. Okay, let's move on to Daniel's question.
Hey, so I was just kind of wondering how you guys thought about like internships versus entry-level jobs, and like were you guys, the people who went to internships, were you specifically looking for internships, or were you just kind of applying to everything that was relatively entry level? Yeah.
Okay, so this is probably something that for more recent graduates is more relevant. I would start with Athena, if you can contribute.
Yeah. So for me, when I had the internships, it was because I was looking for an internship. And actually a really good internship that everybody should think about applying to is the Washington NASA Space Grant run by our aerospace department. That was how I got my LIGO internship, because they matched me with them. And so yeah, I was looking for an internship there. And then when I got my job, it was because I went to a hiring event at UW for Boeing. And something I also learned, once you graduate, a lot of places won't hire you as an intern. So yeah.
Don't graduate. Okay, thank you. How about Evan? If you have any ideas about, oh, is he there? The camera's off. Well, maybe
Sorry,
Charlie.
yeah, I'm moving real quick.
Okay, that's all right.
Yeah. So the goal initially was to get a job straight off the bat. And so I had to iterate a lot during the job application and interview process. And so, after going through my first kind of few rounds of technical interviews, I realized that I kind of sucked at them. Like I specifically remember just getting absolutely steamrolled in a technical interview with SpaceX. And I just knew that I wasn't really going to be like fully prepared for the kind of jobs that I wanted to get straight out of college. So I started to look for internships as well, so I could have a little bit more of a buffer between graduating and going in industry, and so I could, also be learning, also have something else to put on my resume, but then at the same time just be getting better and better at my technical interviews. So I would say like you should definitely be encouraged to apply to internships as well if feel like maybe you're not ready yet to go straight into industry, or you're still kind of figuring out what you want to do. Like having that nice like 3 to 4 month buffer after graduation is really beneficial. So yeah, I would definitely recommend for people that are kind of struggling with getting interviews for full-time positions, or just aren't really doing that well in the technical interviews. Internships are definitely a really good way to get your foot in the door and get yourself like a little bit better prepared for full-time positions.
Thank you, Trent. Okay, Evan.
Yeah. I after school and even during school really struggled to know what I was going to do after the fact. And I took a few months trying to find a lot of things. I still wasn't sure if I was going to do a like PhD in physics or go to grad school, or if I wanted to go into industry. I didn't know really any information going in. And I went the route of doing a internship at a national lab, a program called SULI, SULI. It's for any national lab. And that just allowed me to test the waters of what research would be like, especially like in a more official lab setting like that. I personally liked my time there, got to go across the country, all paid for. But yeah, it was hard to kind of know where to go exactly. So yeah, if you have like any questions, it's more of like a short-term thing, an internship, but it does look really good on your resume as well if you're going for an entry-level job. And don't feel too pressured. Of course, like be working to better yourself, but don't feel too pressured at the moment of like you have to get the entry-level job. Like it's gonna be very fluid. Like we've been saying, things will change, and life isn't just a set course.
Thanks, Evan. Alex, do you have any thoughts on internships?
I kind of knew that I wanted to go into teaching. So, I mean, I didn't really do an internship. I guess I could view my like year teaching at the private school as kind of an internship to see if I liked it or not. But no, I don't feel like I have as relevant of input on that question as the others have.
Well, that's fine. Thanks, Arielle. I wonder if you have any.
No, I mean, I wish that I didn't do an internship after getting out of college, and I really wish I had, because it took me a while to find my first position. So I like to think that it would have been easier.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thanks. And Ned, did you have internships back then?
Yeah, they existed back when I was that younger person. That being said, I didn't pursue that. I was fortunate to get a job, straight out of graduate school. I will say though, like now, I actually do the hiring, right? So we've hired a handful of certainly undergraduates from UW, among others, over the years, and had interns. And it's just a mixed bag. I mean, I think there are times when the economy's good and people can find jobs like that, and like Microsoft is hiring anything that with two legs pretty much. And you kind of get those environments, and you get other downturns like in 2008. And I think my phone was ringing off the hook like, hey, does anybody have a job? Can we find anything? So there's definitely some economic flow to all that as well. I would just say be persistent. Don't be afraid to jam an email, and I'm probably setting myself up here, but don't be afraid to be jamming emails at people and companies, and just, I don't want to say spam, but just, be polite and, try to get your name out there, talk to people. So much of this actually happens through LinkedIn now, for good and for bad. So, social media is a strong pathway to be able to just at least connect with people, stay in touch with your fellow students, and they can certainly point you in directions of things that they've heard of as well. So, it's a mixed bag, and there's not necessarily a single recipe, that works for everybody here. But I'd certainly suggest, trying to, at least get out there and just thrash the weeds.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you all.
Questions? More questions, please. More questions. We have a shy audience. I'm sure they have questions, but so don't be afraid. So there's a question in the chat. If you Ned, can you see it? It's a question for Ned. I can read it.
Yeah, I want to just read it for me. I'm sorry. Yep.
It says, it's from Julian. I was wondering if your first optics class had tools or key concepts you still use in your career.
Yeah, that is a great question. How holograms are made. Again, I think, well, let's even back up. I think the lab classes are incredibly helpful there at Washington. It's interesting. I've actually had a handful of students that I've hired in the interim that were not able to take lab classes during COVID, which I think actually kind of set them back a little bit. I don't think they were as comfortable in the lab and not worried about picking up a wrench or something like that. Certainly there's two sides of, physics, I like to say, in terms of experimental and theoretical. I think not being afraid to do both is really, really helpful. And so getting back to the optics thing, I think just getting to work with breadboards and playing with lenses and not being scared about, burning my eyeball out and things like that. They were all super helpful. And just, I think the wonderment of actually generating a hologram and seeing it come to life and understanding the background of what it was, and really kind of getting both sides of that education in terms of hands-on and the theory behind it was just, no pun intended, illuminating. But that was a really inspiring class for me. I'm sure everybody here had some similar thing too, I'll bet.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So we earlier had a question about what classes were important, but maybe like specifically the career you're doing, the work you're doing now, and the first class that basically was in that field. Anybody wants to say? Yeah, there you go, please.
Yeah, so somebody mentioned the astronomy class that where you learn Python, where you were given tools and then you had to do some analysis based off of Python. I would say that that's one of them. That was that one, and I also did a lot of undergraduate research with Miguel Morales, and worked in a lot of MATLAB, and just got really introduced into programming through that. And so I think that's kind of, by the time I got to my astronomy class, after working with Miguel, that's kind of where the fire really got lit for me.
Mm-hmm. Anybody else? Oh yeah, everyone.
Kind of adding on to what Ned mentioned briefly, those in-person or advanced labs that the UW has, those can also, if you're going for jobs or applying for early career, you can very much vouch for yourself using those experiences. For example, in my interviews, I used my digital and analog electronics. I used that in the interview. I also used my optics. And yeah, just those lab classes. You can use those experiences in interviews or anything else.
Thank you. Oh yeah, Athena.
For me, the class, I guess, as an electrophysicist, I took the electromagnetism series with Professor Detweiler. And I think rather like, of course, the material in it was super important, but I think the enjoyment that I got out of that class series was what was the most important. I think Detweiler taught it really, really well. And so I always had fun in that class. And then when I was being interviewed by my now senior manager, he introduced himself. He said, "Oh, I work with in a lot of electromagnetism." And my response was, "Oh my gosh, I love electromagnetism." And he thought that was pretty cool. So I think not only just like learning these classes and doing well, but also showing that you enjoy them and that, they're fun. You're a fun person. You like physics, I think is pretty valuable.
That's great. Thank you. Brenna has a question.
I do have a question. I was just curious, what is your favorite thing about the work that you do? What is it that excites you the most about the job that you currently have?
Fantastic. Thank you. Who wants to start? Are you enjoying your jobs?
I can start. I love my job. I know that like some of the other career paths that I could have taken with a physics degree might have made my bank account a little happier. But I'm excited to go to work every day. And like I feel like growing up, I always heard the like, if you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life. And I kind of thought like, yeah, like I hear that, but like work is work and I'm not going to love it. But in my career, I get to interact with like I have 170 students. So I get to interact with 170 different people on a daily basis, and seeing like the passion that the students have by the end of the year for physics and seeing them have fun with it makes me feel like I'm making a really big impact, and I get a lot out of that. So I think that just interacting with people and that it's different every day is what I love about my job.
Awesome. Wonderful. Okay. Arielle.
Yeah, no, I absolutely love what I do. I work with a lot of very bright scientists who know neuroscience really well. And I think one of my biggest joys is when I can build systems and I break things, because I find that when I break things, that's when I learn the most about that system. And then I can deliver tools and support, for the scientists for whatever they need. So I think that, continuous learning and also supporting the people around me by giving them the tools that they need to really excel at their science.
Thank you. All right. Who's next? Ned, please.
Yeah, I guess everybody's getting sick of me talking, but I love my job. I'm fortunate. I mean, I'm running my own company that sort of helps the matters to some extent. But that being said, I mean, I think what Alex says is 100% spot on. And just, if there's something you really like to do, figure out a way to make money doing it. And I think the joy for me is to design something or have our team designing something and then see it coming to life, literally from scratch. And so working on a myriad of projects, that is very, there's a lot of growth in that, in the sense that you really kind of mature with the projects that you work on and the things that you see kind of you breathe life into, and it's very satisfying in that way for sure.
Thanks. Charlie? Oh, Athena, yeah.
Okay, if someone else is gonna go, they can go. But
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
okay. I also absolutely love what I'm doing. Like I couldn't imagine doing anything else. The thing I love about my job most is that we are exploring the forefront of science. And so it's really fun every day to just see like how much you can test, like, I guess like the laws of physics, like what we think is capable, what we're able to do. And I think it's really fun to see people go like, oh my God, like my coworker 2 days ago we were talking about something and he was like, when I was in grad school, my professor told me this was impossible to do. And we were doing it. So I think it's just something that's super awesome to see.
Thanks. Charlie.
Yeah, I think I enjoy kind of just the high stakes nature of my work. It's pretty intense day to day. We're kind of at the peak of production right now, so trying to ramp up and build 3,200 plus satellites. It requires a lot of things to go right, and especially like electric propulsion, like it's pretty hard, and you need you need a really close eye to detail. So just the amount of coordination that it takes, working across the design, with design engineers, manufacturing, test, getting all of that to work within the propulsion team, and then also getting that to work with the entire satellite, understanding how all these different endpoints work. The amount of collaboration and coordination that it takes is pretty amazing. But yeah, I mean, it also feels good to go in and know that you're working on something that's important and high stakes, and will hopefully do good things for a lot of people, meaning our customers. So yeah, I guess I enjoy the thrill of it.
Great, thanks. Helen, what do you enjoy the most?
Yeah, going through all of school, doing astronomy, physics, always been super interested in space. And so the type of work I do, I could see it in any other context becoming slightly monotonous and a little boring. But because it's building something so cool, you could actually see right behind me what we're working on, a lunar lander.
Oh, really?
Because that end goal, end project is so exciting, and it's not just, doesn't feel like just any other day-to-day thing we use in the world. The work I'm doing just feels exciting. And so, yeah, I would say just the overall project we're working towards is what's most fun about it.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. All right. So maybe I can ask a question that I don't know. What can you suggest some of the specific concrete things that junior or senior physics undergrads can do right now, other than internships basically are obvious, but some other things that they can do to be successful in finding jobs after they graduate in a year or two? So, who wants to jump in?
Can start. Sorry, was there somebody else that was about to go?
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So just some like concrete things that are really important, that really helped me was, do not underestimate the power of the resume. Like, seriously, having a good resume really, really increases your response rate when it comes to jobs. So for some reason, I thought like, I had good experience, and I thought I could just kind of mash it together and throw it on a resume and it'd get some attention. But if you like don't actually pay attention and are explicit with like the work that you did and how it helped your team or your organization, you're not going to get interviews. So like seriously taking the time to sit down, you can go on YouTube, that they like tell you exactly how to write a good resume. Go on YouTube and, and watch the videos. There are plenty of vlogs, and do the work and really just polish your resume. Like I did probably 100 iterations and had a lot of conversational interviews with other people in industries I wanted to go to, had a bunch of people review my resume. And every time I kind of improved my resume, started getting more job responses. So there's like that element. And then also, for people that want to go and do technical work, like you're going to have a technical interview. So getting comfortable talking about your experience, getting comfortable, getting grilled on technical topics is really important. Like, it's pretty easy to run through a fake interview in your head, but when you have someone like in front of you actually asking you difficult questions, it becomes a lot harder. And like I found that I froze a lot because I wasn't, fully prepared to talk about in depth my work and experience, and then also answering, novel, difficult questions. So yeah, like really getting good at writing a good resume, have people review it, get feedback on it, iterate, and then practicing getting good at technical interviews. Like those are just crucial, at least for me.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you. Athena, I think you had your hand up. And then Ned.
Yeah. So I think the thing that was the most helpful for me, and I think is one of the most important things, and this is also the most important advice I think I will give tonight, is to put yourself out there. Like, kind of like Charlie, I think said before, like, don't underestimate yourself. Don't feel like, oh, I'm not qualified enough, I'm not going to apply. If there's something you think is kind of interesting, just put your application out there. The worst thing that could happen is you get a rejection email and it's the exact same result as if you didn't apply to it. And I know we're also not business students, but like network heavily. I think that helped me out so much. My internship that I got with the NASA Space Grant was because I talked to my academic advisor. And then once I got that internship, I talked to more people in there and I met people in the aerospace department. And then once I started talking to more people, they would mention a club, I'd go and join that club. And then a career professional would come in to a club meeting and I talked to them. And I kept meeting people through other people and through events. And that was how I ended up getting in being able to work in the space lab at UW, was because I met a grad student at a Women of Aerospace event. And I mentioned I was interested in doing some aerospace research, and she connected me with her PI. And we talked, and I got in there. And I got my current job at Phantom Works because I went to the Boeing hiring event last year. And when I got there, there was a line out the door for about an hour. I walked up to it and I thought, man, I don't want to wait in that. It's raining right now. And I was like, that sounds just miserable to do right now. But then I thought to myself, like, no, if I don't do this, I might regret it. So I waited in line, went up there, talked to everybody, and yeah, just put myself out there. So just keep putting yourself out there, even if you think it's going to be a no, even if you know it's going to be a no, just keep pushing.
Excellent. Thank you. Ned.
Yeah, those are both really good points. Just to kind of elaborate a little more on what Charlie said too. The resume is important. We do look at that. And I would say you should never give the same exact resume to two different employers. So one thing you want to do is you editing that resume to the job that you're going for. So if you're looking to do electronics, propulsion and stuff like that, make sure you emphasize those skills and lab classes that you took where you were kind of messing with things that were similar. So at least that kind of, flag something for your potential employer to be looking for. And then again, what Athena said too, I always said as well, like LinkedIn is actually just a haven for people looking for work. And, getting yourself out there and using the social media outlets is really very, very helpful. And then one other thing to kind of do too, that hasn't come up is there's actually quite a few trade shows, even here in Seattle. There's several large satellite symposiums that happen here in the Northwest. There's a Society for Information Display, which is like people who work on different display technologies and things like that, which includes like VR and headsets and those things. So there's different trade shows that kind of flow through certainly the Northwest. You don't even have to travel all that far. And certainly if you're willing to travel a little farther down the Bay Area, there's a bunch of them, and almost all of them have career centers, and they're very well staffed. And most of the, a lot of the bigger companies, when they go to these things, especially, they're looking for other people to come help them. So that's just another thing. So just, get on there. And if there's a particular industry that you're interested in, find out what trade shows that they attend to, because they almost always have some staff there as well.
Thank you, man. Arielle?
Yeah, one of the things that I'll say is that when you're also looking for a job, make sure that you once you kind of know the field that you want to go to, maybe target a few companies and research them heavily. I have been shocked when I've done interviews with candidates who can't really tell me why they want to work here or why they're excited about being here, and that's always kind of a red flag for me. The other thing is be really careful when you're looking for certain job titles, because a systems engineer at one company doesn't apply necessarily to a systems engineer at another company. So make sure that when you are researching that company, try to reach out to hiring managers. Like once you know about it, reach out to hiring managers. Just again, on LinkedIn, you can do that. The worst they can do is not respond or say no.
Thank you. Evan? Yes.
Yeah, adding on to what Arielle was saying, I'm sorry. What did you say again before, Arielle?
Oh, about researching the companies?
Yeah. Doing or applying to jobs on my own, I went through different boards like LinkedIn or those Indeed or general boards like that. I didn't really receive any responses. I received more responses when I went to those actual companies like Boeing, Blue Origin, or anything else I was interested in. That's where going to their direct website and looking through their openings, that's where I got more interviews.
Very interesting. Okay. Alex, any advice?
Yeah, so my advice would be that I noticed when I started looking for jobs that weren't necessarily teaching jobs, that there weren't a lot of jobs out there that had the title of physicist. That doesn't, I mean, it exists, but it's not as common. So kind of be creative in the jobs that you apply to, and be prepared to talk about why hiring a physicist might be a good choice for a job that has a different title than physicist. I think physics is a problem-solving degree, and having someone that's excited by problems, I think that most of the panelists today have talked about, being excited about challenges and problems, is something that is really exciting to someone who is hiring. And it can be a leg up in an area where maybe they're hiring for an electrical engineer, and you don't have an electrical engineering degree, but you can talk about why the physicist might be the right choice for the job. So just be prepared to talk about that. And also, as much as you can, practice interviews. You don't want to get into your interview for your dream job and have that be the first real interview you've done. I think Charlie talked about it a little bit, but figure out what the interviews are like for that company, figure out what kind of questions they ask, try to get some real world interview experience, even if it's a job that you don't want to do. Just go out and practice it and get more comfortable in that space so that you're ready to interview. And I think going in with a specific plan on how you answer questions. I always like to talk about if I have an interview, I like to answer a question with this is maybe more specific to teaching, but I think it could be more generally applicable, my overall philosophy on the question, and then cite specific examples of how I've done that in my past. But going in with a strategy to an interview can be super helpful, especially if you're stumped on a question.
Thank you. Yes, Athena.
I just want to add on to Alex's point. Yeah, practicing the interviews is super, super important. A helpful resource that you guys might already know about at UW is there's a lot of clubs that do mentorship programs. I was in the Women of Aerospace Club, and I had a mentor for about a year and a half, and he ran through so many mock interviews with me. And I think that was one of the only reasons, well, a good reason why I was prepared for the interview. But yeah, if you find a club that is doing these mentorship programs, go in there, sign up for it. Because a lot of times the grad students that are the mentors will have already worked at these companies that you're trying to apply for.
Thank you. Well, it's 4 p.m. It's actually a little bit past 4 p.m. So we should wrap it up. So I would like to thank our panelists for excellent advice, excellent discussion, and yeah, let's give them a round of applause, virtually or not. I'm gonna clap my hands. Sorry, you can't see me. My camera doesn't work. Yeah, and I believe this was recorded, so the recording will be posted on the physics website, I assume. And yeah, so thanks everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great weekend.
Thanks for coming.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you all. Good luck.
Yeah, go dogs.
Go dogs. Good luck, guys.